Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much to the Economist and to Boot for hosting us today. I'm pleased to take a leaf out of Greta's book and pedalled from London to Düsseldorf last night on my bicycle.
Ah, good man.
It's a very nice way to arrive at a sustainability conference, and besides, my private jet is in for service. By way of a brief background, I guess the main reason I'm on this stage is due to being a great lover of the ocean, or for some of you Greeks, a thalassophile. And I'm sure I share that with many of you here today. I've spent over 2.5% of my life alone on the ocean in various small boats, from rowing across the North Atlantic to the Tasman Sea, to kayaking from Greenland to Scotland. I know the ocean very well. From a childhood spent messing around on boats in inland waterways or on the North Sea, I had a passion for being in, on, or under the water from a very young age. I now head up the Arksen Foundation, a platform designed to support ocean conservation and restoration and to drive philanthropic funding for our greatest ecosystem from its current level of only 1% up to 10% by the end of the ocean decade in 2030. For me, the most interesting, sorry, the slides. They're just nice pictures of the ocean. They're not too relevant to what I'm talking about. So for me, the most interesting parts of the ocean and the planet are really those less visited. The more remote, the more pristine, often far from the well-trodden path. Those places at the edge of the charts and where it used to be marked, here be dragons. I worked for 3 seasons in Antarctica on a small expedition yacht, going back to about 2010, this was. And the tourism in the Antarctic Peninsula was really pretty well established and equally well managed. I think at the time there was about 20,000 visitors landing on the continent each year, but as of last year that had doubled to over 45,000. IATO, the tour operators Operators Association, have great management initiatives in place to manage the high impact and very area-focused tourism that goes on in that region, where they're coming in by cruise ships. They have a vigorous vessel licensing system and scheduling, limited time ashore, limited time in anchorages. Vessels would be scheduled to pass either side of islands and back-to-back during meal times to create this illusion that they really were in this wilderness, despite there being many vessels and many visitors. The largest cruise ships were excluded from the area, and in many ways in 2010, I would say they'd really struck the balance very well between people still being able to visit and access this pristine area and yet manage the high demand of people wanting to go there. But today, as I understand, is a very different story, and it's under serious pressure from increasing numbers. The World Bank projects population to increase by 22%, or 2.2 billion by 2050. So if we extrapolate the challenge of tourism in Antarctica to the wider topic of tourism, marine tourism globally, how will our environment and infrastructure adapt and cope with this unprecedented weight of humanity? There will always be those who will seek to do away with tourism and access to special places entirely. But that, to my mind, is entirely counterproductive. We can only protect what we love and know. So to that end, I see the following themes as crucial towards a sustainable future across the marine tourism industry. Sustainability starts with education and knowledge, which in turn engenders inspiration and love. Think what Blue Planet did for the ocean's PR. It is this fertile ground that we must cultivate to create the policy and behavioral changes required for a successful blue future. We must also welcome more joined-up thinking, innovation, and cross-fertilization of ideas. What were once eccentric industries and ideas may now prove critical, from seaweed calming for carbon sequestration and biomass production to seasteading, the rather eccentric idea of offshore sea cities. On technology, we need to seek cleaner construction techniques and better materials, cleaner and renewable fuels for energy generation and propulsion systems. They're already being developed by many of the major manufacturers, and those that are not will be left behind. On management and policy, as global tourism pressure builds in line with population increase, management of this and creation of sufficient and sustainably built infrastructure will need to be implemented. It is a retrograde step to put regions off limits. It needs a more creative approach to manage the challenges. We can learn a lot from Scotland and Sweden with the respective and popularly known right to roam or the everyman's right of land access provision. But it must be remembered that behind those schemes, they are underwritten by the critical maxims of do not disturb and do not destroy. On the population increase, and it's been mentioned earlier, that the ownership models must change. As the global middle classes and global wealth continues to grow, so too does consumerism. We are already seeing this behavioral change through increased levels of yacht charter, boat share clubs, and syndicated ownerships. As an industry, we must welcome and develop this more sustainable approach to accessing our oceans for pleasure. In summary, I think there is much to be optimistic about. Behaviors and policy are in many ways already moving in the right direction. But we must be fully awake to the challenges ahead, not least the increasing number of people hungry for a finite amount of resource and the negative impact unmanaged tourism can have on our planet's most precious places. Thank you.
Olly, thank you very much indeed. It is 2 minutes to 5, so we have 2 minutes. I wanted to, if you think of the Rio Olympics, when the yachtsmen feared to compete there, and it has a real problem cleaning up the waters there. They managed it to a sufficient extent. Does anybody know if those waters are still clean enough, or have they regressed to the deplorable state they were in at that time? Do you know?
I don't know, John.
Anybody know? Because it seems to me that, we try to do things, and it takes government action or institutional action to really achieve these things. For example, if you look at the beaches in Britain, the beaches in Britain are now pretty well reasonably clean. The only reason they became clean was because we were members of the European Union, and there were European Union directives which forced local authorities and governments to clean up the beaches. And I have a feeling that this is, if you want, for example, the Sustainable Development Goals to be achieved, then actually it needs more than just, the admirable SDSN network, but it also, I think, really does mean that you need government action as well. I hope that happens. Do you agree or not?
Yeah, I agree. Definitely you need, push from the top, but also you need push from the bottom.
Yeah.
And what we learned in the last year is that we can have 1,000 panels, no impact. You might have 1,000 ONGs, no impact. You have one young lady, a lot of impact.
Yeah.
So I think that the push from the bottom is very important, because people at the top do not move if...
Unless they get pushed from the bottom, absolutely. Olly, you ended up with being, I thought, optimistic. So if you look 5 to 10 years ahead, do you think things will improve on the sustainability front, or do you think they will go back? And I want to put that question also to the audience. But you three, first of all, is it a plus or is it a minus, or do we stay where we are? Olly.
Well, for my money, I am pretty optimistic, generally. It goes back to my point about the increasing numbers, which could generally make things worse.
No.
But as technology and sustainable methods and materials are improving, it's a bit of a race which one will win. And I think an important point is that you're never going to win by making people wear a hair shirt.
Yeah.
So
despite
suspect,
Greta, we will keep flying.
well, I suspect in the short term, unless we can offer something better, which on the electric vehicle front we do not yet have, people will continue to drive their petrol cars and diesel cars because there's as yet no viable, affordable replacement.
Okay. Vienna, are you optimistic, pessimistic, or?
You know, no, I'm very optimistic because I know, as a scientist, I know very well the impact of this problem on the environment on our health. And that's something that moves us very quickly to the solution. So I'm very optimistic.
Okay.
And in this decade, we are going to reach our goals.
Angelo.
Numbers are clear. Things are getting worse. So, because we keep saying that numbers are clear. Things are getting worse. We need a major effort by everybody in order to improve numbers. Otherwise, rather than being optimistic or pessimistic, we should say we should all be activists.
Okay, so Angelo is an activist pessimist.
I think we can make a lot. Business can do a lot because it is an opportunity. I mean, this is something that I would like to underscore. For the first time, business start understanding that it can be an opportunity. This is a major change. Up to now, I am a scholar in business administration. I know firms. I'm in a board of some companies. I know firms. Firms are not charities. But now, for the first time, you have the opportunity to couple being good citizen, being good for the environment, being good for society, and to be in the long term.
It's interesting, the US Business Roundtable came up with an entirely different concept of how to have... No, I mean, they're agreeing with you. Yeah, no, absolutely.
I agree with them. I agree with them.
Yeah, no, I mean, before it used to be just shareholder value, now it's stakeholder value. The question, ladies and gentlemen, is for you. Put your hands up if you are pessimists about the next 5 to 10 years. 1, 2, 3. In terms of sustainability, will things be better or worse? No, just what is achieved. Yeah. It's like the way YouGov will poll you. And who will be optimistic? Well, you see, clearly, today has been a huge success because despite all the problems in the world, the sponsors, the speakers, all the panelists, and you all have managed to convince all of us that we should be pretty optimistic about the future. And actually, I think it's probably right, because unless we are optimistic, even in the face of reality, we will get nowhere. So let's cling to optimism. And I would like to thank the panelists, who deserve a great round of applause. I want to thank the sponsors, because without them, these things don't happen. I'd like to thank Petros Machaldakis for helping organize all of this and for having this as the event before the International Boat Show. Nectaria, I don't see is here, but I think Nectaria Pasarevakis from the Economist events does a fantastic job, along with all of her team, who really are fantastic. They do a great job, they work very hard, and so if things work well, then it's thanks to them. If they work badly, then obviously it's thanks to me. So on that note, please go outside, give yourselves a great round of applause, and have a well-deserved drink. Thank you.